I need a tissue actually. It's not the fear of failure, as I was saying. We're not afraid to fail. That's not what really scares us, because all of us at some level have failed in life. We all have failed. But what we are so scared about these days is because of the pressure of other people's opinions. What happens if people find out if we fail? What happens if they find out we failed in business? What happens if they find out we lost money? What happens if they find out that my wife is leaving me, or that my husband is leaving, or that my kids are on drugs, or that life is not as good as it looks on the outside? What happens if they find out that it's not so good, right? And what will they think?
Hey everyone, and how's it going? Welcome to my podcast, Life with AJ Fenter. And today's guest is Allan Kleynhans. Allan Kleynhans is an international speaker. He's a high-end performance coach, and his area of expertise includes self-awareness, leadership, and communication. Allan has spent 28 years studying philosophy and personal mastery. Enjoy the podcast.
Can hear you.
My man.
How are you, my man?
Not too bad yourself.
Yeah, I'm great, thanks, my man. How's the sound? Sound okay?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
All right, good.
It's nice, I'm fine.
Do you want me to put some earphones in, or is it good?
No, as long as you can hear me, we're good.
All right, good. I can hear you perfect.
And the sun is shining in the UK.
The sun is shining, my friend. It's been shining since I woke up this morning in the early hours.
Oh, awesome, brother.
But it's cold.
Oh, really?
It's crisp. It's really crisp. It's about 10 degrees.
That's not bad. That's not bad. That's Durban. That's Durban's coldest, I suppose.
So when I woke up, it was about 6 degrees. So it's warmed up to about 10.
No, listen. That's what
I think the high of the day is 11.
Oh my gosh! And listen, for what it's worth, you know now, Durban, this place gets flaky now. It gets hot, eh?
Yeah, it does. Because this is when the humidity kicks in, doesn't it? Or later, right?
So more like February. I don't know if do you remember when you were at the Sharks? February, end of January, February pre-season. Do you remember?
That's right. Yes.
How warm it was then. I mean, I could never. It was always hard for me to understand that we have the because when you do the pre-season, that's when you do the hardest training, right? That's when you really train hard, and that's the one in Durban. I remember us training in the morning to try not to be in the sun. Then we do our analytics, and then try to train as late as we can in the afternoon again because of the heat.
Yeah, I know. I remember. I think February is usually the warmest, isn't it? The most humid time. I think February, if I remember correctly. Yeah, those were good times, man. Those were good. You brought back some good memories in my mind. They just flooded my mind with loads of great memories. By that time when that's when I met you.
That's right. But I was thinking today, what year was that?
That was 2003, my friend. 2003, 2004, I believe it was.
And who was the Sharks coach then? When you were there?
It was Kevin Putt.
Yes.
He was the Kiwi scrum half.
That's right, sir.
Yeah. And I remember that very clearly because I remember the day I met him and the day I walked up to him inside the Virgin Gym. Remember?
Yeah.
And remember when you used to walk in? It was that little restaurant or that little kawaii takeaway place, and then you went up the stairs to get to the main gym area. And he was walking up the stairs, and I remember I ran up behind him and I said, "Hey, Kevin," and I put my hand out. I said, "Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Allan." And I said, "Listen, you've heard this 100 times, if not more." I said, "You've probably been approached so many times with people telling you how they can help the team." So I said, "But I can help the team definitely." And I said, "I've got something different though." So he looked at me and he folded his arms. He said, "Oh yeah?" So he said, "Yeah, I've heard that loads of times." He said, "So what's different about you?" I said, "I'll do it for free." And he looked at me. He said, "What? Seriously? For free? What's the catch?" And I said, "No catch." I said, if it works out well, and the guys like it, then, we can talk about something, in terms of the long term and that. So and then he said, "Okay, cool. Phone my secretary and set it up." And then that's how it happened.
I did not know that. That's thank you for telling that story. So you literally saw him walked up, said, "This is what I'm doing," and for free, and boom, that was it.
That was it.
That's amazing. Well done for having that courage to just go straight to the course.
Yeah, well, I just thought, you know what, there he is, you know what I mean? I'm just going to take a shot, you know? And it was great because, you know, the benefit of that is like I've got, you know, you and I have become friends. You know, I became good friends with Sean Sabi. You know, I got to know people like John and Butch James, you know, and Albert van der Berg is a lovely guy. Dion Constance, beautiful people, you know what I mean? Amazing guys that I used to, you know, and I remember the first time I was standing in front of the whole team, right? And man, it was insane, man. I actually tell that story. I tell that story from the stage, man. I tell that story always from the stage. Is I tell people it's a demonstration of what happened in my own life, you know? And then I tell them how I was standing in front of the Sharks the very first time, the whole team, 25, 26 guys, you know, all 6'5", you know what I mean? Guys that I looked up to, you know, my whole life, you know? And it was like there was two conversations. I was in my head, I was thinking, oh my God, it's the Sharks, you know what I mean? Look at it, there's AJ Fenter, there's Dion Carson, there's Butch James. It was insane. But at the same time, I was, you know, calm and collective on the outside and talking about what I came to talk about, you know, to the team, which was amazing, man. I'll never forget that moment, man. Never ever forget that moment.
And at the same time, I guarantee we were sitting other side and thinking, okay, here's a guru coming to, you know, we were thinking, okay, you know, what are we going to hear? What are we going to listen? That's the thing about life, you know. And you know what you just said now, it just hit home now, because at that moment, that was something that happened in your life there. You walked, just you sitting down there, right, I'm going to talk to that guy and tell him this thing, this idea of mine just came out of your head like that. And I, in particular, I might be very outspoken and loud sometimes, but I'm a very shy guy. So in order to do that for me, I don't know if I would be able to, or at the time or when before, if I would be able to do that. And sometimes we've just got to do those things. I mean, what is the worst that can happen if someone thinks there's an opportunity and you go and you're just doing it in a nice way like you've done? What's the worst you can do? Listen, well, now, unfortunately, we've got someone, thanks, Allan, but no, that's the worst thing that can happen, right? The best thing that can happen is today you're standing on the international stages and talk about your business.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the worst you could have said was no. I saw it and I did it. It was fantastic. You know, it was just amazing how it worked out. And but I do remember, you know, you like you saying, you know, you sitting on the other side thinking about it from your perspective, you know. And I remember when I sat down with John Smith once, you know, we were at it. It was a dinner. It was an informal dinner, and he laughed and he said, you know, I've been told that we shouldn't look you in the eyes. You know, we shouldn't look at you in the eyes as you might hypnotize us. You know, and I had a good laugh. You know, and it was yeah. I met some really good lads, man, good lads, and it's great to see how everybody has gone in kind of different directions and what people are doing now. I've stayed in touch with some of the guys and it's great. I mean, you and I have stayed in touch, and it's great to see what's happening with you, man.
Yeah. So about hypnotism, can you hypnotize? Are you into hypnotism or not?
No, I can put people into a semi-relaxed state. Hypnotism is an interesting thing, you know, because you can only hypnotize somebody who's open to it, right? And really, it's simply just hypnotism explained in a simple way is just really putting the conscious mind to the side so you can talk directly to the unconscious. And I do that in my work in terms of, but doing it in a not from the point of view where you get someone to eat an onion, you know, thinking it's an apple, you know. Yeah. It's really just about, you know, removing the conscious mind, which is very critical and very fear-based and always looking for what's wrong. So then that prevents people from really accessing what's really available. So if you can put that to one side and help people to really tap into the unconscious, which is where all the power lies, you know?
Yeah. Have you ever been hypnotized like that way, the stage way,
No. Yeah. No, I've never been that. Although I was part of a program recently in Romania with a friend of mine, Ozana, and you know, we put this program together, and she invited one of the people who was going to be on stage was a hypnotist, a lovely guy, and he got people up on the stage, like 9-10 people, and he hypnotized them. And there were a couple of people where he actually had to let go back down to their seats because they couldn't be hypnotized. But he got them to pretend they were part of an orchestra, and each one had an instrument, and it was hilarious, man. I mean, they were fully engaged. You know, the one guy was playing the trumpet, the one guy was playing the piano, and the other guy was playing, you know, I think it's a trumpet. You know, what's the one when you do this? And the other one is the saxophone. That's right. One guy was playing the sax, one guy was playing the trumpet, other guy was playing the drums, and they were fully into it, right? But yeah, I've never done that myself, but I have had regression. I have had regression on myself where the hypnotherapist did exactly what I said. They put my conscious mind to one side and in a very relaxed, semi-meditative state, and then spoke directly to my unconscious and accessed some of my memories from my earliest time, which helped me to understand why I made certain decisions when I was very young and how those decisions have been impeding me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was very, look, I was born, I'm a proud Afrikaans guy, but I was born in the NG Kerk as a youngster, born into it, I can say. And later I became very religious at one stage, now not so much anymore. And the meditation thing, I remember, was seen with the people that was surrounding me, the religious people, as a massive threat, almost a demonic thing. This was the thing that was told to me at the time. So I've always had like a fear of meditation. What is happening? What are they doing? But now looking back, obviously it's all bullwash. I can obviously see. It came a bit later in my life, but anyway. So yeah.
That's a very interesting point you make there. We should talk about that later, but carry on.
No, so I would really, I don't know if I would be able to let myself go, because like I say, you've got to be open to it. But I would like to one day try it with someone. I know there's a guy, I went to 2 shows here in South Africa. He's a very famous guy, Andrew, or something, the hypnotist. I can't remember his name now. And I watched 2 of his shows, and like you said, it was ridiculous. It was so funny. It was such good value. I would like to try getting meditated, or not meditated. What do you call it?
Being hypnotized or having regression.
Yeah,
I think there's definitely a lot in it, you know. And it's interesting you make that point about you know, like what you say you were born into it, and the belief systems we take on when we're very young, which is the work that I do, as you know. You know, it's really about, in all my workshops and my talks, it's all really about, you know, what's going on inside your mind, you know, unconsciously, that's preventing you from showing up in a very powerful way and performing at your best, which is what the world is all about now in terms of the achiever mindset. Is like, how can we perform better? You know, sports teams, you know, entertainers, business people. It's really where's that next edge, right? And it really comes down to what's residing in the unconscious, you know, in terms of the fear experiences we've had around fear and how those still trap us in the present day, you know. But doing that kind of work, and you know, you talk about meditation, you know, that a lot of people who try and meditate, the challenge with people who try and meditate and don't really continue with it every day is because it's very difficult to quieten the conscious mind. The conscious mind is so busy, you know, it's always talking, it's always evaluating. Everything we lay our eyes on, we evaluate it, you know, we make a decision about it, you know, and we don't realize we're doing that continuously. And so to be able to quieten the conscious mind is what meditation does, is because it gets us in between the thoughts where the silence is. You know, if we can slow down our thinking process, which is really what meditation is about, is what being calm is about, and being present. Being present means you slow down to the point where you are right in this moment, and there's nothing else in your head, right, apart from being in the now. That takes a lot of work, because the conscious mind is so busy, and it's so critical, and it's so well trained, and it's always looking out for anything that makes us uncomfortable, or that may lead to discomfort, or may lead to pain, and it's looking for those things to avoid it at all costs, you know. And so I always say to people who try meditation and they haven't been able to succeed, is to meditate on something, like meditate on feeling loved, or meditate on the feeling of love, or meditate on the feeling of calm, you know, or meditate on the feeling of certainty, or grace, or gratitude, you know, because that then can lead to a more peaceful state, you know. But meditation is really just simply getting in between the thoughts where the silence is, you know. And if you consider that the average mind has between 60 and 90,000 thoughts passing through it every 24 hours, right? That's a lot of thinking. 60 to 90,000 thoughts. I always say to people, imagine if you could slow that down to 6,000 to 9,000 thoughts a day. Imagine how much more space you would have in your mind, right? How much less chatter. And that's when you can get inspired. That's when you can be creative, right? That's when you can really get into the moment and be very present. And when you're present, you notice things you don't notice when you're always in your head, always talking about stuff, you know?
Yeah. Listen, I would like to actually now, while we're talking about that, let me just set the stage here. So you and I obviously met when, like you say, in 2003 when you were here with the Sharks, and thank goodness after that, as you eventually left and you started your own business, but you're very, very involved with Tony Robbins. Am I right by saying that in the UK?
Yeah.
Tony Robbins as well. And a few years ago, I'll just quickly put it out there, I went through a bit of a difficult time and came over 2 or 3 years, many different things. I'm not going into the detail, but I literally one Friday afternoon got into a spot where I didn't know what was going on, and I was bloody caught on my couch that day, and many things happened to me, but I felt like I was drunk. I felt like I was at the flu, the walls are coming in on me, etc., etc. Long story short, I actually had a nervous breakdown that day, and that Sunday, eventually, I got a hold of you through Facebook, because every now and then we've sent Facebook messages, and I think you were in somewhere in Eastern Europe, Bulgaria, somewhere. You said, listen, I can't speak to you now, I can only speak to you on Wednesday, and I managed to make it to Wednesday, and on Wednesday we had a Skype session for I think 2 hours. We had another 2 or 3 Skype sessions after that in the next month or so, and you kind of helped me to just steer the thoughts, the ideas, the things that I do, the practices that I do every day when you wake up, and you gave me a few pointers that day, and that kind of started my new direction of thinking, of doing things, understanding that everything we go through is in our minds, everything are thoughts, and there's only one person in control of those thoughts, and that's ourselves. Like a quick explanation, I mean, I do this, it's actually gone that far now that I'm doing a talk to schools and a talk to business about what happened to me, and I've done 2 talks last week, one with Mr. Price and one with Derifco, that was very, very successful. And you are in my talk, and I tell people about Allan Kleynhans, who...
Oh, that's so cool, man.
Part of my talk, you're in there, and how it just started, and you kind of just angled me, and from there, a lot of people came into my life afterwards as well, because that change made me realize that I need to have other people in my life, maybe cancel some other friends and get new friends in there that's serving my purpose, that's benefiting my life. And there my whole new trend started. And like I said, there's a few other people afterwards that came as well. But firstly, thank you for being there at that time for me, and it really you were a big help for me then.
Yeah, you're welcome, my man. And you know, it's and we've been speaking since that happened, you know, and it's really great to see what's happened and what's unfolded for you. I'm so happy that you're speaking, my man. I mean, I remember I told you that a long time ago. I said, you need to be on a stage telling your story. You got so much wisdom, so much, you know, so much to add, you know, to young people, especially about focus and determination and, you know, commitment, you know, I mean, to, you know, the career you've had, you know, in sport and then in business, and the mistakes you've made in both of those areas, you know, the great wisdom and experience you can impart to people. So I'm so happy that you're on a stage. I'm so excited to hear that you spoke with Mr. Price and Derifco, and that went so well. And I know it's only going to get better for you, man. Your story is going to get, your impact on stage is going to get better and better, because you cannot do something over and over again without getting better. And especially the kind of person you are, who's really, you've got that discipline, you know, and you've got that drive to really get better, you know, in everything. So I'm so excited for you in that regard, man. That's awesome.
Thanks. But yeah, but you know what? So, I mean, one of the things that kind of made me push the button, because obviously, one, it was hard for me, because I knew that the minute that I'm going to push the button, the minute that I'm going to start talking about it, I'm going to have to be absolutely vulnerable. I'm going to have to be truthful, because
yes,
if you're not truthful, people pick up on that quickly. They call you out for a bullshitter quickly. So I knew that if I start this journey, it's going to have to be bare bone. They're going to see the inside of me, which is a big thing, right? It's a big thing for us. We're all proud. We don't want people to know the failures or the things that you've done. So
yeah.
there were one, I knew that the day that I'm starting, I'll have to be vulnerable and truthful, because only then people will really link to your story. Only then do they start listening. Number two,
Absolutely.
I think it's
very true.
Yeah, I think vulnerability in anything, in any space of life, and you know, obviously you know about Brene Brown, who speaks about vulnerability. And a friend of mine, Claire, said to me, I must listen to Brene Brown. And I listened to Brene Brown on TED Talk, and where she's talking about vulnerability. And that to realize, apart from maybe benefiting someone else telling my story, it's my healing if I actually talk about these things that I keep inside, that I hold close to me because I'm ashamed of it or embarrassed of it. The minute you start talking about it, that's a little bit tough, but that's where the healing starts. That's when you open and it heals that wound.
Man, I've got goosebumps now on my arms, man. That's so accurate, but you know, if I just tell you, just give you a little bit of, you made me think of something, and you know, that's the biggest benefit of actually speaking, is not only do you become more articulate, not only do you become more confident, because that ultimately is what happens, you know, when the more you stand in front of human beings on a stage, the more you learn to be comfortable in your own skin. But what you hit the nail on the head now, the most powerful thing is that if you're going to stand on a stage and have an impact, you have to be transparent. You have to be completely transparent about your flaws, your mistakes, your fears, your own inner demons. But when you do that, like you say, the biggest gift is the healing process it takes within you, in yourself. And I think about, you know, coming back to South Africa in November 2001 with the intention of living there again after being away for 12 years. And during that 12-year period prior to 2001, I'd been studying in the UK and in America. And that's when I came across Tony Robbins in 1990 when I first arrived in London. The first book I ever bought when I arrived in London was Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. A fantastic book. I still recommend that book today. It's brilliant. And that was my introduction to neuro-linguistic programming. And then 12 years later, I decided to come back to South Africa with all these learnings. And I wanted to, first of all, my main intention was to see my parents again, because I hadn't seen them for so long. And I changed a lot, you know, while I was away. I'd done a lot of work on myself. You know, I had come to terms with the fact that I was a soldier in South Africa, and I'd been sent into Angola on a secret mission in 1987 that nobody knew about. And I had carried that trauma with me and that post-traumatic stress that was caused as a result of that, and the guilt and the shame, etc. But I'd worked on that. But coming back to South Africa was very cathartic for me, because I remember when I came back in 1991 for a short while, about 8 months, and then I came back in 1996 for a 6-week holiday, and then I came back in 1998 for a very short holiday again. Every time I came back during those periods, I was always very uncomfortable when I got off the plane. I was always shaking, because it brought back memories, you know. And you know, like you say, you know, you talk about how you were born into the NK Kerk. I was born into a religious lifestyle too. I went to 2 Catholic schools, and then I had to deal with what I'd done in the army. But going through that process and then coming back to South Africa and then sharing what I'd learned, you know, and teaching, you know, I stepped on the stage for the very first time in 2000 in London. My first talk ever at the King's College. It was it's a monthly community that meets every single month as a result of Tony Robbins' inspiration. Tony Robbins fans who get together every single month for 26 years now. In 2000, I was invited to speak there. First talk ever. I was like spaghetti against the wall, right? The feedback I got was unbelievable passion and unbelievable intensity, but neat structure, you know. So but that was my first. But then I thought, right, I get back to South Africa. This is what I'm going to do, right? I made up my mind. From 1996 was when I decided I want to be a facilitator. You know, that's what I want to do with my life. And then I get on the stage in 2000 London, have this amazing experience where it's stuck all over the place. But I came off the stage thinking, wow, you know what I mean? I'd like to do that again, because I recognize all the benefits. I recognize that I needed to grow. I recognize I was very lacking in self-confidence, and I realized that was the great place that was going to teach me to be confident. And it was going to make me step outside of myself, right, and make me step up my game. And so I came back to Durban, and what I saw there in Durban, you know, in terms of the consciousness, you know, in South Africa, you know, the very, very suppressive consciousness, you know, a lot of fear-based consciousness. And then I did the work that I did there, and it made me grow a lot, man. And it really made me it really made me have to step up. I'm sorry, there was a call came through there.
No problem.
It made me have to step up, and I grew a lot, and I realized that I had to be transparent. You know, if I was going to make an impact, I had to be vulnerable. And so I became vulnerable, you know, and it was very scary, man. But now when I stand on the stage, you know, and you know what's interesting, AJ? 30 years after I was in the military, this is mind-blowing for me still when I think about it. 30 years after being in Angola in 1987, it's 2017. I'm doing a tour of Russia. I'm going to 12 different cities over the course of like 8 weeks, 2 cities every weekend. And I go to these 3 different cities. The first time it really just blew me away, but then it happened a second time and a third time. 3 different cities. And in Russia, you know, Russia is so vast, you know, and, you know, there's multiple cities there where they have at least 1 million people, you know, in terms of population. But I go to 3 different cities, and 3 different men walk up to me after my talk and say, I'm so glad that you came here to this city and shared that story in such a vulnerable fashion about your time in the military, because I was in Angola and I was fighting against you.
What are you talking?
I'm telling you, man. Because remember when I was in Angola, there was the Cubans and the Russians were involved, right? And there were MiG-27s and Russian artillery and Russian officers and Cuban officers. But the main ground force was local population.
Yeah.
But these 3 guys, one guy was a jet pilot. I mean, he was a MiG-27 pilot. He was dropping bombs on the South African military, and the other guys were on the ground, right? And they were all 3 of them were officers. One guy was still in the military, and only 2 of them let me take a photo with them. And I told them it was only for my own personal use. I would never post it. But I took that photograph just as a reminder for myself that actually happened. But these 3 guys come up to me 30 years later and say, I was in Angola as a young soldier fighting against you. And I'm so glad that you lived so that you could come and tell your story here, so that I could have an understanding about what's been stopping me from connecting with my family. And I'm going to go home and I'm going to be more authentic with my family. And I'm going to apologize to them. And I'm going to really use what you've taught me here today so I can really reconnect with my wife and my kids.
That's crazy.
How's that?
That's ridiculous. That's crazy. What
amazing. It just shows you, you know, when you talk about how the universe is connected and everything is connected and everything has a role and everything's playing a part and everything has a reason, you know, for unfolding.
Yeah.
And man, it's just, that really just confirms it for me, you know, that there's no accidents, man.
Yeah. So war for me is a very, look, I'm sure there's many different causes that are so stressful and that people get, you know, post-traumatic stress from. War, obviously, one of the biggest things. I had a guy on my podcast a few weeks ago, he's called Black Mamba Man, a guy a singer, comedian from Zimbabwe. When he was a lightie, when he was 16, he went to England and he became a soldier. And at 18, he was fighting in Afghanistan. You know what? I mean, they were right in it. They were killing, and people were getting killed. He was on my podcast. It was so beautiful, man. He opened up eventually, just by himself at the end, started talking about how he had PTSD and how he was abusing drugs because of it. It was his only escape. And eventually how he healed himself with plant medicine, but that's another story. But so I was talking at Mr. Price the other day, and I was telling them about my podcast. And one of the guys there said, you must talk to this guy called Jose Valande. I've got my phone open here. And you talk about Angola. He's an Angolan that was a child soldier. Now, I don't know whether it was at the same time or I'm not sure. He looks like he's my age. I'm trying to get him on my podcast now. So, Jose, if you're listening, I want to talk to you.
Wow, that's awesome.
He talks about this around the country and he's now one of the, he's one of the owners of a very popular coffee shop. I can't remember the name right now, around the country. And
we're in South Africa.
Yeah, in Cape Town. So he started a very upmarket coffee shop, and his story is about him escaping as I think a 15 or 16-year-old child soldier, managed to get to Namibia, but then he was an exile, or not an exile, there were fugitives there, and they were kept in a place, and he escaped there again, came to South Africa, and his whole story was just incredible, man. And
wow, it sounds amazing, man. You need to get that guy on your podcast.
I'd love to talk to him. And you know what, and then you listen and you think to yourself, you know what, my little thing that I had you know, it's nothing. There's so many people out there that are struggling, and you might be coming across it all the time. I always say, when I do my talk, I say to people, all of us wake up with some kind of fear. Some people have a little fear. The fear is possibly, you know, am I looking fat or not? Right. That's some kind of a small fear or stress. And then the other people, they've got massive stresses in their lives. I'm not going to do, but you know, there's a spectrum from here to there. We all have this stress, and we often hide it. I hid it, and those are I think the dangerous things, right? But you must be coming across it all the time, because people come to you.
Yes.
There's already a
it's everywhere, bud. You know, you if I refer back to what you said, you know, when you opened up and you honestly said about what happened, you know, when you called me that day and you were having, you know, you felt the walls were closing in on you. You know, that's nothing to be ashamed about. You know, these days, because of all the stresses of business and life, and you know, and the pressures, etc., and especially when we have goals and targets and we got needs to meet, etc. You know, it happens a lot to people. Anxiety, everybody experiences anxiety. Every single human being experiences anxiety, but there's a scale. There's a scale of anxiety, right? So you might be experiencing anxiety at a very low level, but you're still experiencing it. And that might be just like, you know, a stress headache, or worrying about tomorrow, or worrying about the fact you might not be able to deliver on that meeting, or you might not be able to deliver on that target or that deadline. But then if you take it up to the highest level of anxiety, you know, that is like where people are really like, they can't handle things, you know, they might then that becomes schizophrenia or psychotic episodes, etc., or they need to be looked after or medicated. So, but everyone's experiences it, you know, and it's from overwhelm. You know, it's overwhelming when we think about too many things at one time. When we think about all the things that we have to deliver on, and we put them into one, it kind of put them into one bag. You know, that can be very, very overwhelming. But everybody experiences it, and it's really just a case of monitoring how we think. You know, and what kind of importance we place on things. You know, often we don't have to place too much importance on things, but we do, because we're so worried about what other people think. You know, you said the same thing. It's like, what are people going to think? You know, if they find out. You know, and this is the thing that I come across all the time. It's not the fear of failure that we're afraid of these days, right? Just hold on one second, my friend. I need to just get I need a tissue, actually. It's not the fear of failure, as I was saying. We're not afraid to fail. That's not what really scares us, because all of us at some level have failed in life. We all have failed. But what we are so scared about these days is because of the pressure of other people's opinions. What happens if people find out if we fail? What happens if they find out we failed in business? What happens if they find out we lost money? What happens if they find out that my wife is leaving me, or that my husband is leaving, or that my kids are on drugs, or that life is not as good as it looks on the outside? What happens if they find out that it's not so good, right? And what will they think of me? That's the thing that scares us the most, because humiliation on the scale of emotions is the lowest, and it's linked to shame. And we experience shame as kids. All kids experience shame. Every child experiences shame. And the more work that I do, and the more that I've done the research, you know, and my workshop is all about helping people to heal trauma, so they can move past what's holding them back, so they can live fully in the present, and they can experience what they came here to experience, so they can be creative, and they can build, you know, businesses and have great relationships. But what holds them back is these humiliation, the humiliation that's experienced through the experiences that they had, or linked to the experience they had when they were kids, when they felt shame. And that's what we're afraid of. We want to avoid that at all costs, man. That's why people get so comfortable in living in the comfort zone, because it's safe there. They can control everything inside the comfort zone. As soon as they step outside of the comfort zone, they now have to relinquish control. They're not sure what's going to show up. They might be suddenly find themselves in unfamiliar territory. They don't know what to do. And especially men, and in South Africa, this is what became very present to me. I became very present to this, and became very obvious to me, is that men, and the way we grew up, the way I grew up, the way you grew up, there's a lot of men cannot express themselves. They not that they don't want to, is they're afraid to. They're afraid to say how they really feel, because of the fact that other men might say, hey, man up, man, stop being a pussy, you know what I mean? Where's your balls, right? Grow a pair. You know, all the things that we heard when we were kids, right? Boys don't cry, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, however, the problem is the reason, the very fact that people cannot feel or don't want themselves or don't allow themselves to feel is the very reason that we have such an explosion in mental health, awareness right now, because more and more people are becoming aware of the fact that everybody's got depression. When I say everybody, I say it loosely, because I don't believe everybody's got depression. But I do believe that a vast number of human beings in the Western world, especially because that's where we talk about the achiever mindset, is there's a vast number of people who are suppressed emotionally because they haven't been taught to experience emotion at a proper level, at a very powerful level. They haven't been taught to feel, and they haven't been taught to process emotion. So therefore, we box emotion up. We put that one out of the way, right? I don't want to feel that one. Let me put that there. I don't want to feel that one. I put it there. I only want to feel this one and this one, this one. But you cannot go through life only feeling emotion in limited amounts, because then you become suppressed. And suppression of the human spirit leads to depression. And when you spend enough time being depressed, now the other emotions kick in. Now there's frustration, there's resentment, there's anger, there's all of those other emotions. And then we look for easy way out. And then what people do is they turn to things like drinks, alcohol, sex, TV, food, medicine, etc. So really, I suppose what I'm saying here is that, it's great to have this conversation. I'm so glad that you are on the path you're on now, because when you talk about your own vulnerability, that's very inspiring, my man. Very, very inspiring for younger men who look at you and think, wow, there's AJ Fenter. And then they hear, wow, fuck, he's also got this, sorry, I'm swearing now. He's also got the same thing. He's also got the same stuff going on in his head that I've got going on. Wow, if he's feeling it, then maybe I can talk about it too, right? Because then what we do is we give other men the permission to actually talk about what they're feeling, what they're really feeling. And men these days, you look at the world these days, the work that I do, and I'm doing this work 20 years now, but now, where my work's taking me, it's becoming more and more obvious. And I deal with a lot of men. I work with a lot of men, and I work with a lot of women, and I work with a lot of couples. And for men now in the world these days, it's like a lot of men have lost, they're feeling emasculated. They're feeling emasculated by the environment they're living in, by the relationship they're in. And you look at women these days, women don't really need men for anything these days. They can have babies without men. They can grow their own businesses. They can buy their own cars. They can make lots of money, right? So there's a lot of pressure in terms of being a man these days, and the ability to be significance, to feel significant and to feel like we have power. If you take that away from a man, which is why we have a lot of problems with youth, right? When it comes to men and gangs, etc. Because really all kids are looking for is significance, right? They're looking for certainty, significance. They're looking for connection, which is what we're all looking for. So when we can step up as a man and say, listen, this is what I'm dealing with, and I'm not afraid to share that, and this is what I'm doing to get myself into a better place. Then what happens is it gives other men permission to talk, and to open up and say, wow, I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling depressed, I'm anxious, because then really what it is really helping people to feel. Feeling is so important. We are feeling beings. We're emotional beings. And what we do is we're so caught up in looking good. We're so caught up in doing the right thing because then it looks good to other people. And then people think, okay, cool, I must be doing well, right? And that's not real, man. Yeah. And now the social media is only exacerbating that. Social media magnifies that. Social media magnifies that to the point where young kids are taking their lives so early on because they're so worried about what their friends think of them online. It's tough, man.
So I've got a little bit of a thing about social media. And this is in my talk as well. We are not going to stop social media. It's here to stay. No one's going to stop it. No one's going to do anything about it. What I tell people about social, and this is what I've done. Shortly after I've spoken to you, a few things happened. One of the things that I did is I realized that there are people that I follow on my platforms that are not benefiting me at the time, and it's not helping me reaching my full potential. That could have been people, it could have been other pages that I follow. And I decided that I don't want to go off social media. I like social media. I like the fact that I can use it for my business. I like the fact that I can reach people with me or my story. So I then decided, okay, well, rather than going off social media, why don't you try and I call it rinsing your social media like a rag, a dirty rag. You rinse it, but you clean it, and it's clean again. And I decided then that I'm gonna start every morning when I wake up. I'm just gonna, if there's one, there's one. If there's 10 people or pages that I feel that is not serving my purpose, I'm gonna just delete them or not block, or just mute them, so that I don't have that data coming freely into my mind all the time.
Yes.
It took me about 2.5 years to really get all my social media platforms to a place where, and also every time I took someone off that was negative or that didn't, like, again, benefit me, I would try to at least fill it in with a page or a person that are positive, Tony Robbins, a Sadhguru, or whoever. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of people or pages people can follow to help you. And whatever that thing is that's helping you, it's different to mine, but there are millions of these people.
Yes.
Every one of us can have a social media platform full of stuff that serves you, and whatever that is, I don't care. But as long as it serves you to benefit you in 2-3 years from now. And so for me, that was a massive thing, man. It helped me so much by controlling the data, because I'm like any other person or kid. I've got my phone right here, I've got my social media, but I can control the data that comes into this mind, into this brain. Yes. I'm in control of it, no one else.
Absolutely, man. Social media is a tool, like you say. That's all it is, a tool. I went to an evening event that I'm part of recently, where that subject came up, social media, and how bad it is, and I said, I put my hand up and I said, I'd just like to remind you that social media is only a tool. It's how you use it, or how you let it use you. If social media is using you, then obviously it's the wrong way around. You need to use it for your own benefit. I use it for marketing. I use it to reach people. I love the social aspect of social media, which is what it's about, right? Connecting with people. I love the fact that I can connect with someone in a different part of the world who I've never even met, and they find me, or we connect somehow, and then we start talking, and then we become friends, and then I go to that country and I meet them face to face, and it's like we're already friends because we got that rapport already, That's the part I love about it, and be able to reach people through video and sending out a message, a positive message. You recording your podcast now, you put it out online, and someone is going to watch it somewhere, and they're going to hear one thing from you or one of your guests that's going to make a difference to them, and it's going to maybe decide, okay, you know what, I'm not going to take my own life. I'm going to decide to live, right? Yeah. And so, that's the beauty of it, definitely. The problem is that people, there's good and bad to everything, and people get sucked into stories on social media and get sucked into arguments, and they get sucked into trolling and all that kind of stuff, without realizing that they're getting sucked in, because it's like it becomes addictive like anything, But it's being able to use it, like you say, you got to use it. And I agree with you, It's controlling what you watch and what you listen to and who you follow. I remember when I came back from seeing Tony Robbins live for the first time in 1999. I was living in London, and I came back, and it was a decisive weekend for me. It was a defining moment in my life, because prior to that point, I had been abusing myself and for 15 years, smoking, drinking. I was marijuana, ecstasy, LSD, alcohol, and it was a combination of all those things all the time, because I felt so empty. And although my head was full of knowledge, and I'd been studying by that point for 11 years, from July of '88, when I became a student for the first time, when I started to read about psychology. And 11 years later, my head was full of knowledge, but nothing was changing. And I was frustrated, and I was using, and I was in a crazy 8. I'd get depressed, then I would get high, then I would get angry, then I'd get depressed again. And that was my life, like, for years, right? And I was working just to get by. I was very unhappy and suicidal. And I saw Tony for the first time, and I made a decision that weekend, and everything changed for me that weekend. I made a decision, and I said, I made the commitment I was going to stick to it. And one of those decisions I made is I was going to cut out anything that I considered toxic in my life, including relationships. And so what I did was I cut myself off from a lot of people that I love, right? Good people that are still tight. I'm tight with them today, but I'm a different person now, yes. And they are also different people, and we've all grown. But at that point, I was involved in toxic behavior. It had nothing to do with the people, because I love the people. And I always tell parents all the time, I say, do not overlap your children with behavior. They're not the same thing. Behavior and children are two different things. The problem comes when you overlap them. So I recognized that I was in toxic behavior, in toxic patterns of behavior that was not serving me. And I made the decision, I'm going to cut all of that out, including the people or the environment. And man, that was tough, man. It was the toughest thing I ever did because a lot of us, our identity, our very own identity is tied up in the relationships that we have with people who are not serving us. And so I did that. And I did that for 13 months, where I just stayed out of that environment for 13 months. And then eventually when I started to frequent those environments again, I was a different person. I had put in the work, I had built the muscle, and I could say no, and I'll never forget that. And it's a good thing, like you say, you've got to look at what you're allowing into your social media timeline, onto your phone, what you're watching on TV. I said this just the other day in Romania when I was talking to an audience in Romania. I said, what are you watching on TV? Who are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you looking at on your phone? All of those things that make a difference. All of those things. Norman Vincent Peale, the amazing Norman Vincent Peale, who wrote The Power of Positive Thinking way back in the day, right? He was considered like the grandfather of positive thinking. And he used to say, you cannot allow the luxury of one negative thought to enter your mind. Now, that is extremely difficult because we have that happening all the time. You talk about data, all the data that's flowing around. Randy Gage, the great Randy Gage, who's also referred to as the Millionaire Messiah. He's an amazing guy. If you've never come across him, you should check him out. Randy Gage, G-A-G-E. But he says, don't think of the atmosphere in terms of like the atmosphere, right? He says, think of the atmosphere that you're in terms of the data sphere. Because right now, there's billions of packets of information just flowing, all the time. Because we're transmitting information through our phones, our laptops, our TVs, the radio stations, and it's little packets of information that are broken down into tiny little packets and are being beamed across the earth all the time.
Yeah.
Like that's insane when you think about it, right? The data sphere. And a lot of that stuff is arriving in your head. And if you're not conscious about what you're thinking about, you'll pick up on information that doesn't serve you, and you'll get involved in a conversation about it in your own head. And you may even get into an argument with yourself and take both sides of the argument, and it's crazy, where you could just pause and think, hang on a second, what am I allowing into my head? Is it serving me? Do I want to get involved in that thought process, or do I want to give any energy to that thought? No, I don't. What do I want to think about right now? What do I want to read right now? Who am I going to listen to?
Yeah. But before you mentioned about the shame bit, and I was just thinking about something else. Well, often we either feel shame for something, or we feel someone say something that hurts our feeling a little bit. And an example, I'm just using an example. We sit around chatting, and you say something, and you didn't mean actually. Some people might mean it, but let's say you didn't even mean to hurt me, and you say, AJ, you got a bloody big nose and you're ugly, but you didn't even mean it. You just felt at the time vulnerable there. You didn't know what to say, and you said something. And I hear that, and I hold that inside me, and I feel so bad about it for so long. Months later, a year later, I'm still worried about the fact that I've got a big nose and I'm ugly because Allan said that. Allan forgot about that saying the minute he said it. You've forgotten about it because you didn't mean it, you said it. Now that for me is something that happens so much in my life, where people have said something, and I can guarantee you that the minute they said it, they've forgotten about it, but for years later, I held on to that thing that they said.
Yeah.
That nothing to no one but just me. It's been hurting me for 3 years. But it's only me, there's no one else. In my mind, it's a massive thing. Everyone's talking about it. No one gives a shit. Everyone's worried about their own problems. But people
Absolutely.
say stuff sometimes in conversation. The bottom line is, I say to my talk as well, we shouldn't, if you say something that hurts me, it's bad on you. If I let that thing affect me, it's bad on me. It's my fault.
Yes.
No one else's. Because I've got control over what happens here into my emotion.
Yeah. And because we're meaning-making machines. We add meaning to everything. That's what the human mind does. It adds meaning to everything. So I remember I used to do that a lot too. When I was a kid, I was always teased about my funny flat nose. And I was called flat nose, and I was teased a lot throughout my whole youth. And I grew up thinking And I was often told I was ugly, and I grew up thinking I was ugly. I believed that, right? And I used to be so self-conscious that when I went out in public, if anyone looked at me, I thought they must be checking out my nose, right? And they must be thinking something about my nose. And that kind of thing we can carry that kind of thing long into our life, you know. But now other people's opinion is just other people's opinion. I have zero concern about what other people think about me, because I know that, over the years, I've built that opinion in myself up to a very healthy level where I have a high opinion of myself. And it's not an ego thing. It's just really understanding that, what I do here on this earth is, and I'm in line with a higher purpose, and I feel like, I've got a really a big purpose, and I like to make a difference, and I love my life. I've got 2 healthy kids, I'm surrounded by amazing people. So my opinion of myself is a healthy one. But people they create meaning for all kinds of things. You said you used the analogy about like if someone disrespected you or said something that was maybe it could be considered as as a slur, right? But people do this all the time, even with the simple word no. Somebody says no to you, and people in their head say, wonder why they said no. What does it mean? It must mean I'm not good enough. Maybe it means I'm not pretty enough. Maybe it means I'm not rich enough. And they create all kinds of meaning for everything, man. It's crazy. So I always say to people, you can always choose the meaning. You can always choose the meaning you give to something. If somebody says something and you immediately go to a negative meaning and it makes you feel bad, you got to ask yourself, why am I feeling like that? And what did I make that mean? What decision did I give that? What meaning did I give to that? And then what else could it mean? Yeah. Like, what else could it mean? What else could it mean? And ultimately, if you're talking about people hurting each other, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, I always say to people, they say to me, but he said this and he did this to me and she did this. And then I always say, well, what does that mean? And then they say, well, it means that, maybe, I'm good enough or whatever. It always comes back down to that underneath everything. And I say, what else could it mean? What else could it mean? And then simply, it could simply mean that maybe that person is just in a very painful place themselves, and that's when people are in a painful place, that's when they usually like to give away their pain, because their pain becomes unbearable and they think, what can I do with this pain? I've got to give it away. And they give it away. And they usually give it away to the people they love the most. That's why we usually hurt the people we love the most, because we know that we ultimately know that even if we hurt them, they won't leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
They won't leave.
That's amazing. And so you talk about self-mastery, self-awareness. Those are your expertise. Self-mastery, break that down a little bit, if you can.
Yeah. Self-mastery means like mastering the self. And what is the self? The self there's many different levels to the self, So at the basic level of the self is the ego. And when the ego's in control, then we'll do all kinds of things that don't serve us, that are unhealthy. We'll do crazy stuff because we're looking for immediate validation. We're looking for immediate certainty. We're looking for immediate comfort. We're looking for, immediate acknowledgement or significance. We're looking for safety in the moment. So we can often do things that don't serve us. And we often say things to ourselves like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. What an idiot. Why did I do that? Right. And then we think, oh my God, what is she going to think of me? Or what will he think of me? I'm such a fool. But, when you, the more conscious you become, and as you rise in your own understanding of the self, the highest part of the self is what we refer to as the higher self, right? The higher self, or the God self, or the super conscious, right? Which really where is the level of our genius, where we are in tune with everything around us, and we're aware of our place in the world, and we're aware of our place in the universal cosmos, right? And when we're at that level, then what we recognize is that there's this, it's called one consciousness. We recognize there's no separation from anything. But at the furthest extreme away from that is the ego, where the ego is all about me, myself, and I. It's I consciousness. It's me. And that causes separation. So self-mastery really is just about recognizing when we are doing things to ourselves that are causing us to separate from the people around us, or causing us to separate from what we really want, which is love and happiness, right? We want to feel loved. We want to be in a loving state. We want to feel like our life means something. So when we're separating ourselves from our highest good, is because the ego's in control. That's why the acronym from ego is edging God out. So, we both mentioned religion earlier. I'm not religious. But when I came out of the military, I studied religion for about 6.5 years. I studied all religion, and I wanted to find out what is religion, and where does it come from, and how does it play a role in my life? And after that study, and now 32 years later.
Sorry, give me 1 second. Irene, sorry, you'll have to give me another 20 minutes, please. Yeah, the noises are not good. Thanks.
And so I wanted to understand what role religion played in my life, and having been to 2 Catholic schools and having gone to Sunday school from before that at the age of 4, and that's 32 years that I've been studying, and I'm still reading and studying, and I'm still, I like to read about everything. I like to read about, consciousness, philosophy, psychology, neurology, spirituality, business, technology, everything, right? Because I'm interested in the.
So when you study religion, so you study the holistic religions. Is that what it was?
I studied Christianity, Catholicism. I studied, the Quran. I studied all different religions. The Hindu religion. Sifu and all that kind of stuff. I was interested in like what is it about, right? And so I came to the understanding after all that study, and now my own conviction, my own philosophy, is that after all that study, I came to the conclusion that religion is a man-made construct of which the substance is missing. The substance is spirituality. The substance unites us. It creates communities. It brings people together where they say, let's create a common goal, right? But religion, unfortunately, divides people. Religion has been responsible for the most death in the world, right? It's responsible for all the suffering in the world. It's responsible for the fact that there's prostitution, that there's sexual slavery. That comes from religion, because religion created something called, abstinence, and religion created something, the fact that you can't, you shouldn't be having sex, because it's a sin. So all of those things, right, are all stories, man-made stories that have been passed down for centuries and centuries and centuries. So, the reason I'm talking about this is because initially the conversation was about, the studying this information, and coming to the point where, if you look at the self-mastery, the highest self is the God self. And that means if you look at the God self, the life view is that God is me. I am God, and God lives through me. I experience God through my activity, through my daily activity. And how we experience God through daily activity when we're in the highest self is through kindness, compassion, service, right? Because that makes us feel really good when we serve and when we're compassionate and when we're kind. Even when people trigger us, even when people trigger the ego in us, and the ego is always triggered, I get triggered every day. But I've practiced so often from getting off my ego and reminding myself, what's the real truth here? What's really going on? What am I missing? What am I missing? And how can I get in that person's shoes right now? What are they feeling right now that they might be behaving like a complete arsehole, right? Because they're only behaving like that because they're in pain. So that's daily practice, of mastering the self. So when, Lao Tzu, the great Chinese philosopher, Lao Tzu, 5,000 years ago, he said that the greatest battle you will ever face is the battle against yourself. And so mastering yourself is more important and more courageous than mastering your enemy on the battlefield. That's what he said, right? So that's the greatest challenge we face, because every day there's stuff around us that's triggering us all the time, and we get triggered into our ego all the time, and then we get pissed off and we say, how come you don't understand me? Why don't you see it from my point of view? It's my way or the highway, fuck you, you idiot, etc. But that's just because we've dropped down into the base level of our ego, and we've forgotten that there's another reason, there's another truth. We've forgotten there's another explanation. So self-mastery is just reminding to bring yourself back up into a higher state of consciousness where you can see what's really going on, where you can ask yourself, what have I missed? What am I not understanding here? Do I have all the information? You never have all the information. And to even think you have all the information is completely ludicrous. And that is very egotistical, because there's so much information that you don't have access to. But we base all of our decisions and all of our behaviors based on what we think we know. And what we think we know is tiny compared to what's really going on, right?
But this is a very interesting conversation, and I think also a touchy one, because
it triggers people.
100%. I'm 100% convinced you do not care whether anyone is a Muslim, a Christian, or a Buddhist, or whatever. There's more than 1,000 religious belief, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, there's loads, man. There's so many, and there's new ones always starting up. But I agree with you. I totally agree with you, because I had a friend of mine. I have a friend who's he's one of my best mates, and I remember a long time ago he said to me, he said, Alan, you full of shit. You're just as judgmental as everyone else. You're just as judgmental as me. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, I bet you look at people of different color and you also judge them in your head. And I said to him, I said, man, you know what? I said, I can honestly say that I do not do that anymore, because I've worked so hard not to do that, because I grew up next to a police station. The first 6 years of my life, few people know this. I grew up next door to Point Road Police Station. Okay. Right in Masonic Grove, which is right next door to Point Road Police Station. And I grew up, and I used to look in the police yard next door when I was 4 years of age and see what was happening in 1970, when it was a very different place, right? Wow. And my parents brought me up always respecting people based on their character, not the color of their skin. I was very grateful for that. When I went to St. Henry's, Morris Brothers, at the age of 6 years of age, I was 5.5 when I started. And I remember I was 7 and a black boy arrived at our school. First black boy at our school, all white, all boys, Morris Brothers, St. Henry's, on the hill at Entabani there. And a black boy arrived at my school. And I was the kind of kid who was always on the outside, because I felt so conscious about my nose, etc. And I was bullied, and I didn't really, I was very, very self-conscious and didn't have confidence. And so I was always on the outside. He was on the outside. He was a black boy. Him and I became friends. I got beaten up because he was my friend, because I was friendly with a black boy. And so, and I'm saying this because you said something is very accurate. I don't care if somebody's Christian, Muslim. I don't care if they're Buddhist, or if they're agnostic. I don't care if they actually hate God. I don't really care, because I look at everybody, and everybody is a human being in my eyes. And everybody, and also because, one of the greatest benefits that I got from being a soldier in Angola, and had to do some terrible things with a patrol mortar pipe and an RPG-7 rocket launcher. I lost a lot of mates. One of my, in the very first combat I had, one of my mates bled out right in front of me while I gave him a blood transfusion. The back of his head was missing. And then every other day for 7 months, I was killing people with my weapons. It was intense, right? And I had to do a lot of work on that, healing myself. But one of the greatest things that I got out of that experience and all the work I've done subsequently is I got tremendous compassion for human beings. I love people. I know when I meet someone, I know that person is fighting his own battle in his own head. Or that woman is fighting a battle. She's trying to feed her family. She could be a single mother. Everybody's battling in their own head. Everybody's got pain. Everyone's got problems. Everybody's got trauma. So my job is, when I meet people, considering everything I've studied and who I've become and the person that I intend to be every day, is how can I serve this person right in front of me? What can I do to make this person feel better? How can I serve this person and help them to understand there's another way? Yeah. And that requires seeing people as your equal. Everybody is your equal. Everybody is your teacher. Everybody is a gift. But that takes daily practice, right? Daily practice. The ego will suck you right out of that conversation just like that. And you get triggered so easy. And before you know it, it's like, fuck you, you're an arsehole. How come you don't see it from my, why are you cutting me up in the traffic? You prick, why are you pushing in the queue? And we can get caught up in that, because it feeds us at an emotional level. It feeds us, and we get to be right, and we love being right. Human beings love being right. The ego loves to be right, even if it separates us from the people we love.
Yes, absolutely. And this is actually the first time I'm going to talk about this on my podcast, but we are there now, and you spoke about your black friend, and in South Africa right now we've got a very interesting dynamic happening where, look, as humans we're tribal, right? We're so tribal.
Yes.
My tribe could be my 4 friends here, or it could be that I'm white, or it could be that I speak Afrikaans, or it could be that I'm ginger. So we've got all these little tribes around us, right? And you align to this tribe, and that's your people. And like you say, we are all flesh and blood and skin. We're all the same, whether you're a black or an Indian person or a person of colored person. That doesn't matter. The problem in our country right now is, and in every tribe, in the white tribe, in the black tribe, in the Indian tribe, whatever tribe you are, there are always people on the top that are almost spreading division. And I say this very carefully. I think very carefully what I'm saying right now. Everyone. I'm not pointing out one tribe. Everyone in the white tribe, Afrikaans, English, and the black Zulu. There are these people that sit on the top, and there's almost a division plan. You see it on Twitter, on Facebook. I don't know if you've seen this movement. A guy called by the name of Jared Pitts has started this Facebook page called #ImStaying. Have you seen any of that?
Yes, yeah. I've been watching it. It's amazing.
Amazing. And I had Jared on the podcast. I'm having tomorrow night again. And
brilliant.
You know what? It's such a beautiful thing, because what that taught me is, hang on a bit. All this news that I'm seeing about this hatred between us in South Africa, yes, there are those people, and it's mainly these people on the top here. But in the bottom here, there are the biggest part of this country, that people like me that sit there and all we want is the best for each other, and we want the best for this country. And I really want the best for the poor guy on the street corner. I really want it. I mean, I'm a poor guy right now. I don't have a lot of money. We all want the we all want the best for each other.
Of course.
I really hope that things like this #ImStaying, hopefully there'll be more of that to make South Africans understand, fuck man, this is a beautiful place. We've got beautiful people here. Doesn't matter your skin color, doesn't matter your tribe, doesn't matter what language we speak. Yes, we're different. Yes, we look different, smell different, speak different. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If we can just, and I always say this, if we can just, for me, I'm saying it to myself, if you can every week or every day learn or meet someone in another tribe, or understand someone in the other tribe, whether it's his language, what he's doing, just try to understand, not being closed to learning something else. I think that's the key. Slowly, then
Absolutely.
we could break down barriers in this country, because it's a beautiful.
Of course. I agree with that. And there's a couple of things there I want to speak to quickly there. Is you mentioned about tribal. Yeah, we are tribal, and a lot of that is in our genetics. But ultimately, when we understand human behavior, what we see is that people like people who are like themselves, because it makes them feel safe, right? So we like people who look like us. We like people who think like us. We like people who dress like us, who like the same things as us, because it makes us feel like we fit in. And if you look at the 3 most common limiting beliefs for human beings, the first one, I'm not enough. And if people find out I'm not enough, they will leave me. I won't be loved. And the third one is that I don't fit in. And as kids, a lot of us have that one. I didn't fit in as a kid, and I battled to fit in. So when we find a group of people or a tribe that is similar to us, or seems to have the same thinking as us, or they might do the same things as us, they ride Harley Davidsons, they drive Mustangs, they like BMW, then we can fit in there, because we find a group and we think, okay, cool, I feel comfortable here. I found my tribe, right? So a lot of that is DNA and genetics, but also it's a lot of it's behavior. Now, if you take consciousness comes before DNA. Consciousness comes before genetics. So that means that genetics doesn't really have the same power that it used to have. We can't say that we get cancer because my grandmother had cancer. That's no longer true, because science has proved it now. Science has proved that consciousness comes first. So that means that the DNA is subject to the environment that it's in. So then that means that we don't really have to look around and say, okay, I do like certain groups, and I like communities, and I like to fit in with those people because I like to ride a motorcycle, and I like to play sport. I like rollerblading, I like snowboarding. But at the same time, it's also understanding that there is one big tribe. It's the human race, right? And everybody's different in the way we brought up. But here's the thing. We all have our own different, unique paradigms. And so the greatest challenge is first to understand. You said it yourself. If I can understand somebody, right, that opens the door. And the great Stephen Covey, who wrote the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he said, seek first to understand before you trying to be understood. And that's where people really have a challenge, is they don't listen to hear, they listen to speak. They're waiting for their turn so they can put their idea across. They say, yeah, I hear you. I hear you, but let me tell you my opinion, or let me tell you my take, or let me tell you my view. Rather than saying, hang on a second, let me just say if I understand you correctly. So what you're saying is this X, Y, Z, right? Do I understand that correctly? Because when you can understand somebody and put yourself in their shoes and walk a mile in their shoes, like Eminem says in his song, right? The great line, let me walk a mile in your shoes, or walk a mile in my shoes before you judge me. South Africa is a beautiful place, man. I love that place. Some of my friends think that I left there because whatever they think, but I left there because I wanted to come international. I wanted to go international. But that doesn't mean I don't love South Africa. I'm a great ambassador for South Africa. My blood is green when you cut me open. That's the fact, right? I always tell people South Africa is an amazing place. You should go and visit it. It's a melting pot of variety and it's just beautiful, man. But I agree with you. There are people at the top of each party. There are people at the top of each particular demographic in South Africa who are driven by ego and driven by greed and power, because that's what mankind is driven by, greed and power, which is why we have these challenges internationally, not only in South Africa. And what they're doing is they see a personal benefit in it to create segregation, to create divisiveness, because they see a personal gain in it. There's a personal gain. And what people on the ground have to do, the people that are behind I'm staying, #I'm staying, which is amazing. People like my friend in South Africa, Robin Banks, who teaches mind power. People like, Steph Duplessis, all these amazing people in South Africa. The guy that wrote the book, the coffee table book, the book about South Africa, the good things about South Africa, the good news. All these great people who are doing great work on the ground level. And the people who are watching this in South Africa, if you're watching this, even if it's on replay, spread the word, right? Share this video, because everyone in South Africa needs to remember that you don't have to follow somebody at the top of your party, especially if they're creating segregation, especially if they're telling you something that doesn't feel right to your heart, that doesn't ring true with your highest understanding or your intuition. Tap into your own intuition and look around and connect with people on the ground level, because it's the people on the ground level that are going to create change in South Africa, not the people at the top of the party. Yeah. The people at the top of the party are only interested in one thing, is how can I stay in power? Yeah. The people on the ground level, they look around, they see each other, they say, how can we come together and make sure that this country is still a great place for our children's children, right? Where we're not killing each other all the time. And this is not only happening in South Africa. I mean, look what's happening here in England, right? With Brexit and in Europe, in a time when we should be coming together and collaborating for mutual gain, what we're doing is we're trying to segregate and divide each other, which is bullshit, man. It's all about power. It's all about politics. It's what it's all about. So really, it's really about like, okay, cool. What can I do on a daily basis? What can I do in terms of my own consciousness, which is what comes back to this the topic of self-mastery. That's what self-mastery is about. When you rise to the highest level of self-mastery, which is oneness consciousness, a one consciousness, you recognize that you are not separate from anything. That means we are not separate from people just because they're different color. So what? That's on the outside, man. You know what I mean? What's on the inside is God, right? God is inside me. God is inside you. God is inside everyone. So when we rise to the highest level of self-consciousness and recognize what can we do together to create a much better, mutually beneficial existence for all of mankind. Yeah. Where not only one person has more than others, when we all have equal share, right? And that's possible. It's possible, but it takes hard graft, man, because the ego is so invested. The ego is so invested in being right. It's my way or the highway. It's my way because I know better than you. I know better than you because I'm white. I know better than you because I'm black, right? Yeah. Or I know better than you because my family was hurt and you hurt my family, or your family hurt my family 20 years ago, 30 years. We need to give up all that shit, man. We need to just say, right, what's happening right now? What can we do right now to make sure that tomorrow is a much better place for all of us?
Sure. So well said. And you said a thing now that triggered something. I got this message this morning, and I'm going to try and play it on here. And I'm actually going to later try and put it over on this chat. So let's see if it works. It's I forgot the name of the guy. I think it's called Ishwar Puri. He's a Canadian, Indian-Canadian guy, and beautiful. It's like a few minutes long, but listen to this.
One of the big factors of failure in life is to carry too much guilt and too much regret. And since we carry guilt and regret of things that we say, oh, we could have done that way. Nobody can do any other way. Law of karma operates like that. The Indian spirituality believes in 4 principles. It's good to know what the Indian spiritual. Then I'm not talking of American Indian, I'm talking of the East Indian, okay, the Indian from where I come. They believe, first, that whatever happens had to happen that way. You could not change it. Second, whoever you meet in your life, you are supposed to meet, and there is a purpose in meeting that person. There is no chance meeting with anybody, and it's all based upon your past actions. And they have come either to teach you something, learn something, pay off something, receive something, and it's only to settle something that you meet anybody in life. The third is, whatever has to start in this life, where you say, I want to plan this, I want to do this, there's a time fixed for this, and only happen at that time, neither before nor later. And the fourth principle is the most important one, which says, what is over is over. Don't hold on to it. Don't hold on to the past. Don't hold on, oh, I made a mistake, I should not have done it. There was no way. Hindsight can do a lot of things which your real information at that time would not have done. You would have done exactly the same thing. Then why regret? Why carry guilt with you? Carrying guilt lowers your energy, lowers your power to concentrate, is an interference in your meditation. So we must learn how to overcome this feeling of guilt and say what's over is over. Fourth principle.
I saw that and I just thought, man, that is so beautiful. I mean, that's it. Right?
Your volume has changed. Your volume has changed on your voice.
Is it better now? I don't know what's going on now. Is that better now?
Okay. Yeah, carry on. Yeah, that's amazing. I agree with all four of those principles.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nothing else could happen other than the way it happened.
Yeah.
And everyone comes into your life for a specific reason, even if it's just to connect for a few seconds. So that's why I always say to people, look people in the eyes, use their names, say thank you, and really just be present just for a few seconds, because that person could be suicidal and you never know. Before they met you, they could be thinking about taking their own life, and just because you connected with them for a few brief seconds and saw them, they might change their mind. And I love the last one. Let go of what happened. It's gone. It's done. Take the lesson. Ask yourself how you can use that to become more enlightened.
Yeah. But listen, I think we're going to call it. That was fantastic. Thank you. And
amazing, man.
Thank you for sharing all your stories with us as well. And good luck with everything that side, my brother.
Thanks, AJ. Appreciate it, my man. It's always good to connect with you, buddy. And I appreciate this great conversation. I'm going to share this on my Facebook. So as soon as you're ready, give me the link and I'll share it. And I wish you all the best with your speaking, my man. Just you're gonna rock it, my man. I'm excited for you, man, because you've got a lot of value to add, my man.
Thanks, my boy. I appreciate it, Al. Have a lucky day, buddy.
You too, my man. Stay blessed.